Welcome to the Excel Pod. Welcome to the Untied Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett Bernethy. I'm one of the hosts of this show, along with my very good friend Corey Sawyers, and today we are here once again as we're studying the Sermon on the Mount. We're in Matthew chapter 5, verses 38 through 48 today. And we're going to be talking about revenge and love. So a lot of good stuff here that I think is going to be a great blessing for us to talk about and for you to join in the conversation with. Jesus has been really just laying it on thick and helping us to mold our lives and our understanding and even our emotions to align with His. And so there's a lot to be discussed and a lot to think about, but we're grateful to do it together and grateful to do it with you. And so thank you for joining us today. And we hope, as usual, that you will like, share, follow, and subscribe to the Untied Podcast, along with all of our other podcasts on the Excel Pod Network. Just go to excelstillmore.net and check out everything on the Excel Pod. We've got a lot of great stuff on there, a lot of great podcasts that we know will bless your life. But we do thank you for joining us today for another episode of the Untied Podcast. And as usual, let's start off with what's been cooking. Corey, what's going on, brother?
Well, not much cooking since last week. We've been a little busy.
Every week I ask this, and every week I think you go, well, not much. So I don't know if people are going to be like, why are you doing a what's we cooking?
Well, normally there's something we've been cooking, but no, we had with Garrett and Bailey in town, and they wanted to hit some of the restaurants that they miss out in Texas, and Melody's coming to the window at the door and saying, smoked mac and cheese, but we talked about that last week. So
we did, yeah.
But since then, I ain't really done a whole lot. We've eaten at Blake's a couple of times. Funny because we got some friends out in Idaho, and when all of our family was there Saturday morning eating brunch, the whole family was there, and we were getting a picture taken over there, and Blake run over there and got in our family picture with us, and I posted it and he posted it, and then later on some friends of ours in Idaho commented on it, said, we were just watching Barbecue Brawl, and I said, you reckon the Sawyers know this Blake guy? And of course we do. I've known him his whole life, but anyway, so we've eaten at Blake's a couple of times, and El Vallarta, which is a Mexican restaurant down in Greenfield that we really like. We've eaten there a couple of times, and so we did go. My dad had to go down to the VA hospital in Memphis last weekend, and we went down early and stayed with some family that we have that live in Germantown. Darlene, she's actually a double first cousin to my mamaw. I don't know if you've ever known any people that were double first cousins, but two brothers married two sisters. So anyway, she lives in Germantown. We stayed with her and went to the commissary. I don't know if you've ever been to or heard of the commissary, but it's one of the great barbecue restaurants in the Memphis area. It's in downtown Germantown.
Okay. And
it's a hole in the wall. It looks like the kind of place that would be on diners, drive-ins, and dives. And of course, Germantown is the really nice upscale part of Memphis.
Yep.
And right across the street, there's a fine dining restaurant with valet parking. And then you walk in this place and you're like, where did this come from? But really good barbecue, really good ribs. You get a deviled egg with every order. And I usually, like the other night, I got the jumbo barbecue sandwich and I got fried okra and deviled eggs as my side. You get 4 that way. And they've got these things they call them pig sticks. And they cut up sweet potatoes and put them on a long wooden stick. And then they dip them in a really thin batter, like a tempura batter or something, and deep fry them. And then they bring this cinnamon sugar glaze that you can dip them in. They're really good. It's a way to turn sweet potato fries into more like a dessert almost. But everything I've eaten down there has been really good. We keep begging for people to sponsor us. Maybe the commissary will, and we'll get some free lunches down there or something. But anyway,
Germantown.
So even if I'm not cooking barbecue, I'm still trying to eat barbecue somewhere. Usually,
that's right. Germantown has some good places.
Yeah,
really good places to eat. From donuts to chicken to. There's even. I'm trying to think. There's a good pizza place there. I think there are actually a few places in Tennessee. I can't remember what it's called, but they you basically make your own pizza and they throw it right in their big oven, and I'll have to think about what that's called. But anyway, we know that because our oldest son Parker did an internship with the Germantown Church of Christ there, and he was there
really?
for a summer, and so. We got to know that area a little bit, and very nice. In fact, every time that we go through, depending on what route we go through to see them, a lot of times we'll stay in Germantown because the hotels are nice if we don't go to Jackson. So it's a really, really nice area for sure.
Yeah.
We've gone to church there a few times.
If and when we can ever get you to come to Martin, we actually have a really good wood fire pizza here in Martin that, it's got the brick oven that they make everything there homemade, and it is so good. They've got some unusual combinations, which I think pretty much any good pizza place does. They've got one. My favorite kind of pizza is Hawaiian. I love Hawaiian pizza, that sweetness of the pineapple with the spiciness, and
now we're
they have one they call
real controversial stuff here.
I know it. I've always thought it funny. People think it's such a big deal to put pineapple on it, but they'll put anchovies on it. I know. In the grand scheme of things.
Right.
Anyway, they have what they call hillbilly Hawaiian. And instead of ham, it has chopped up pieces of country ham on it.
Ooh.
It's got a pineapple chutney that they put all over it. And then they chop up pickled okra. And the first time I saw it on the menu, I'm like, pickled okra? And I don't know how or why, but it works. And they've got lots of other good things there, but I've never been able to get anything else, because every time I go, I want to get that hillbilly Hawaiian. So
I'll tell you what, pickled okra, I can eat that all day long. I would try it.
And they've got a great appetizer, which is one of those things, like, I'm sure this happened to you. You get it at a restaurant and you think, why did I never think to do that? Okay, because I love hush puppies, right? And I love dressing. Now, we're not talking about stuffing if you're listening from up north. We're talking about cornbread dressing. Well, they take cornbread dressing and they make it into little balls and they deep fry it like hush puppies. And I'm thinking, why did I never think of that before? Then they serve it with this 2 little bowls. One is a bowl of like this turkey gravy that you can dip it in, and one is like a cranberry sauce kind of sauce. Man, you talking about delicious. It is larping. And you're thinking, that's pretty simple. Why didn't I think of that? So Anyway.
Speaking of different pizza, there's a place in Oklahoma. There's actually, I want to say there's 3 of these. It's called Joe's Pizza. And they have you ever had taco pizza before?
Uh-huh.
They have probably the best taco pizza I've ever had in my life.
Really?
I mean, and it is filled to the brim with, everything be on a taco. Beans, beef, just lettuce, the whole thing. And I mean, it is filled. And, oh man, it is so good. I don't know. They have some kind of sauce on there. Maybe that's what does it, but it's good. I've had it a few other places and it's all right, but man, their taco pizza is fantastic.
Yeah.
You could just sit down and eat the whole thing.
Melody loves taco pizza. She loves, have you ever had cheeseburger pizza? She loves cheeseburger pizza.
I don't know that I've had cheeseburger pizza. I've seen
Really?
it. I don't know that I can't remember if I've tried it or not. I've seen it, but I don't know.
Well, they put ground beef on it and lettuce and tomatoes and pickles, and they used to take mustard and Thousand Island dressing and all that across it, like you were making all the contents of a Big Mac on a pizza. And she likes it. She usually just gets like meat lovers when we go somewhere.
Yeah.
She often will add banana peppers. She likes banana peppers.
I do too.
But
my daughter-in-law has started her own garden this year, and man, she's all about it. And she's growing banana peppers. So her and our granddaughter Tatum, they go out and they check them and send us pictures. And good banana pepper, man, those are good on anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I had a friend of mine that he's actually the man that baptized me. That years ago, he used to always plant a few banana peppers in his garden. And he would, when he'd go out there, he'd pick a couple of them. And he said, I'd snack on them while I'm going around picking everything else in the garden. And one year, whenever people first around here started hearing about habaneros, he planted him a row of habaneros over there next to where the banana peppers were, not knowing that, that banana peppers and habaneros would cross-pollinate. So he said, I picked me a few banana peppers and I start eating on them things. And I mean, it set me on fire because they look like banana peppers, but they had the heat of a habanero. You're talking about a wolf in sheep's clothing. There's a sermon illustration you can use at some point. Man. But
that would be a surprise, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So anyway,
I like, the older I've gotten, I like hot stuff, but jalapenos is really the hottest that I care to deal with. I know guys that, I mean, they love hot stuff, and the hotter the better. Me, I've got a level, and I don't really cross that level. If I would have tried that, it would have really set me on fire too.
Yeah. And the thing about jalapenos is you'll eat one and it's as mild as a bell pepper.
The next one will light you up, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So but I love jalapeno. I love the taste of jalapenos. I'm like you though. I like hot stuff. I don't want it to be test your manhood hot, No. But I like hot and spicy.
A little spicy. I've definitely got a level, but last week you mentioned this before we went on, but last week you had shown us the smoked mac and cheese.
Yep.
And so my Uncle Greg called me right after, and or I think he was watching it, and he was going on about all that because he thought everything looked good that you were cooking last week. And so anyway, he sent me, and I need to, I'm going to try it out, but he sent me a recipe for some smoked mac and cheese that he's done that somebody else has sent him. So I'm going to have to try that out. And I don't know. There's no way to see if it's as good as yours since we can't really try it together. But anyway, I'll test it out. And maybe at some point, whenever we do get to spend some time together, we'll test them out to see which is better.
That's right.
Good old smoke off.
Yeah. Well,
but we will have
just come on up.
If we do that, we're going to have to throw in some type of meat because it would be weird to do a smoke off for mac and cheese.
Yeah. Well, we can do that. We can mix the meat in with the mac and cheese then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I think there is a meat in this mac and cheese that he sent me, but I need to look. I can't remember what it is. I watched it last week, but I'll have to look because I can't remember for sure. But here's what I did last night. It was actually pretty good. Some little bit of chicken there, some chicken thighs. And these were just brats with some cheddar cheese in them. And, of course, all that there. So they turned out. I have not done chicken thighs on my Blackstone at all. I've always done them on my Traeger. But they really turned out pretty good on the Blackstone. A little bit of avocado oil on there and used some Cosmos Dirty Bird seasoning. And they ended up cooking pretty good. So I like that Dirty Bird seasoning on chicken. It just works. It just works. So talk about a little bit spicy. You can, if you get enough on there, it can be a little spicy. I like it. It's too much for my wife, but I like it on there. And man, it's hard to beat a good chicken thigh.
Oh yeah, it's the best part of the chicken. I like
chicken tenders, and if chicken breast is cooked right, where it's juicy, it's not all dried out, then I like that. But chicken thighs are definitely my favorite. Or chicken legs. I like doing those too. Do some drumsticks.
Yeah. It's got enough fat in it that it makes it very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, good stuff. A lot of good things going on. Of course, summer is kicking off. I know you've got several speaking engagements coming up, even just this week, and I've got some coming up. So we got camp here in a couple of weeks. The kids are going to, and preacher training camps will start rolling around. When is, remind me when future preacher training camp is in Denver?
It's the 14th, I'm thinking, look at the calendar, 14th through the 21st.
Of June?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it always ends on the Sunday of Father's Day. So the Sunday before Father's Day to the Sunday of Father's Day.
Mm-hmm. So that's coming up. So I assume registration is open and all that's on. So if you're in the Denver area, or you would like to go to Denver, go to Bear Valley, register for that.
We routinely have from close to 20 states we'll have people come from. So, in fact, I could pull up here the updated roster and tell you, but we have so many people from all over that come. I know we always have some guys from down at or up in Idaho that come down. Garrett's bringing some from Texas with him. We'll have some others from down in Texas. Right now we got Colorado, Tennessee, Idaho, New Mexico, Arizona, Wyoming, South Dakota, Missouri, I think I said New Mexico already. Texas, Florida. I don't know how many that is. Not near as many as some years it's been. Maybe 10 or 12 states. So, but we have, I'm going to say maybe a third of the guys will be from Colorado. And then the rest of them will be from literally all over. Yeah. Of course, the two that are coming from Tennessee are from our congregation, Gannon and another young man, Lawson Bragg. A fine young man as part of our congregation is going to come up. But we've got, I think 50 is the cap. We've got about 41 or 2 right now. So there's still a few spots available if you would like to to apply for that, you can go to wetrainpreachers.com and look for the Future Preachers Training Camp deal and get that application in. We'd love to have you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know Preacher Training Camp at Louisville, I'm on staff for that. That's going to be in July. So if you're around that area, that's the 12th through the 17th. So if you are looking for something in July, that's an excellent camp to be at. And all of my boys have gone through PTC at Louisville, and it's always been good every year. So those are two really solid ones to go to. North MacArthur has one in Oklahoma City, and that's going to be, I think the week after, or 2 weeks after Louisville's. And then there's Eagle Camp around the Blanchard area in Oklahoma. That'll be around the first weekend of August. So several options for all ages. So if you are your sons or some of the guys at your congregation from whatever age, from 10 all the way to graduated senior in high school, they're looking for a preacher training camp. There are several options, and we sure hope that you will take advantage of those. In fact, I can put those links in the show notes so that if you're looking to get more information, you can have that, and you can check that out. So a lot of good stuff going on this summer, and a lot of great opportunities, and we hope that you will take advantage of each and every one of those. So summer gets busy, and this one's not going to be any exception to that rule. So,
yep. But remember to make time to go fishing too.
That's right. That's right. Go enjoy the beautiful outdoors. Something about the outdoors just relaxes you. It's good stuff.
Yep.
Well, Corey, we've got another good study ahead of us, and a lot of great stuff to discuss and talk about. We are in Matthew chapter 5, and we're looking at verses 38 through 48, and we're looking at the topic of revenge and love. I guess those are actually two topics, but lots going on here, a lot of good stuff, and as we have been each week, if you haven't been with us and are catching up, make sure that you are highlighting or marking your Bible in this way to identify these different things that Jesus is saying here. Truly I say to you, or you have heard. That really plays a big role in everything that Jesus is saying in this section of the Sermon on the Mount. And so we're playing off of this. Again, there's been a few different contrasts that we've looked at. We started off several weeks ago looking at the thesis statement of the sermon, which is in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 20, where he said, "For I say to you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." But then we looked at our first contrast, which was in verses 21 through 26, which was anger, and we looked at the different stages of anger. The second contrast was in verses 27 through 32, which discussed adultery or lust. Then our third contrast was divorce in 31 through 33. Last week we looked at the fourth contrast, which was vows or oaths, depending on what translation that you have. That's in 33 through 37. And this week we're looking at the contrast number 5, which has to do with revenge and love. So that is how we have been breaking this down, and I've tried to keep those in the show notes for each of these episodes so that you can have those, and we'll certainly put those in there today as well. So, Corey, where do we want to get started here in kind of introducing this section of the sermon itself?
Well, it is interesting to me, these last two contrasts of the 6 revenge in 38 through 42 and love in 43 through 48, how closely connected they are. Of course, adultery, divorce, and vows were all three in some ways kind of connected. And then you could say you start with anger and you end with love in the contrast, and it's quite a turn there, of course. But just looking at, like you said, when you see Jesus saying, "You've heard it said, but I say unto you," that's the mark that we've moved on to a different section. And you see that here in verse 38 and 39. You've heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Well, the Pharisees had taken a law that was designed really to bring about compassion and understanding and made it a law that encouraged revenge of all things. It was a law that was intended to make sure that you didn't take more than what you should take when it came to revenge or punishment or whatever. I think about like some of our lawsuits in our country today. You spill a little coffee on you and you get $5.2 million or what, whatever. That's not the way that it was intended. This is Exodus 21:24, Leviticus 24:20, and Deuteronomy 19 and verse 21. And what those three passages in the law of Moses were teaching was, if I steal $100 from you, then $100 is what I ought to have to pay back to you. If I injure you in such a way that you lose your pinky, you shouldn't be trying to get the death penalty for me for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that was the intent of the law, and they had taken it and made it turn into this license that automatically meant that if somebody did something to you, you were supposed to get revenge on them. God wanted us to be in control of ourselves, not let anger rule the day and seeking revenge. That's not what God wanted. God wanted us to be in control of our emotions and have justice, yes, but also mercy and grace along the way. And the Pharisees had flipped that upside down and said, all right, the law gives us, permission to take our revenge out on somebody that we feel like has done us wrong in some way.
Mm-hmm. And so they'd really twisted it to make it a law of revenge instead of,
that's right.
There's maybe a good theme here is that's really, I think, being pushed as well, is that Jesus is wanting them to think about what they do before they do it. I mean, if you're considering, the text that you already said, let's think about what we do before we do it. So we're thinking ahead, and we're not doing something that's going to cause an issue. We're not going to throw a fit. We're not going to, this is not about, like you said, a revenge tactic, but this is about actually being considerate of our own actions and treating others the way, what we'll find, treat others the way that we want to be treated. So just because somebody does something to us doesn't mean we need to do something back to them. But treat people differently. So the eye for the eye is even today, I think, abused in some ways. And we I've heard people talk about that before. Well, they did this to you. They deserve what they got coming to them. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's right. Maybe it's not. But that certainly is not the purpose of the teaching here. So think ahead is really the idea, I think, that he's beginning to push. What was that Deuteronomy passage that you had mentioned there?
That was Deuteronomy 19:21.
19:21. I had the other.
Exodus 21:24.
Yep.
Leviticus 24:20. Deuteronomy 19:21. And if you go back and study those verses in their context, like I said, that's what you're going to see, is it's a limitation to revenge, not a license to revenge, And that's the way and as you mentioned, that's kind of what we've used it as before, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. We've used that as an idea. That's what remember going back to the thesis, their level of righteousness is that you get revenge on people, and it's okay to get revenge on people. But this is what you have heard it said by the scribes and the Pharisees, but your righteousness must exceed theirs. So what does Jesus say? Well, verse 39, he says, but I say unto you, and there's, again, our marker that we're, this is a different subject that we're talking about. But I say unto you, and he gives us some different responses to oppression. He says, don't resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn to him the other also. So here's the first one. And of course, people will say, does that mean I can't defend myself? He's not forbidding self-defense. He's talking about slapping you on the cheek. The old law the law of Moses allowed for self-defense. Exodus 22 is a place that you can see that. So we don't need to go further than what the text does. But what he's saying is, let the other guy do his thing. I don't always have to have my way. My papa used to say, if he can live with it, then I can live without it. And that's, I think, the attitude that Jesus is trying to tell us to have. And we'll say, well, I'm not going to let the bad guy win. Well, Jesus labels him as evil, and then he says, let the bad guy win. In other words, you got to choose the hills you really want to die on. And there's battles all the time in ministry and otherwise that we got to pick and choose the ones that we're going to make a stand on. This guy is evil, but now's not the time to stand your ground just for your pride's sake or your reputation or whatever. But when you allow the evil guy to win, then two things are going to happen. First of all, legal avenues may kick in, and then justice will have its way. Romans 12 through 13 talks about that's what government's job is. So let them do their job. But then secondly, let it all be settled in the proper protocol for legal disputes. And if the court system doesn't take care of it, God will. One way or another, it's going to be taken care of. So just let it go, And that's the idea that Jesus is saying here. Instead of always, I've got to win, it's got to be my way, they got to know that they were wrong and I'm right. Jesus says it's okay just to let it slide and not try to die on every hill, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
Yeah, it does. And I think at least for me in my head, this continues to rise to the top. We talk about self-made religion or being self-righteous, but really the religion, the beliefs of the Pharisees, the scribes, who are mainly being talked about here, it is a selfish religion. It's all about what's in it for me. What am I getting from this? Am I getting my due process? Am I getting whatever? And so this is continually rising to the top. Why is it they were so upset with Jesus in the first place? As we go on throughout his life, in his ministry, well, their power was essentially being taken away. Mark tells us that Jesus was there to take the kingdom back because they had essentially stolen. And so what Jesus is doing here is laying a foundation of we've got to understand that our ability to think about other people and the circumstances of life is far greater than thinking about what's in it for me, about ourselves. And
that's
if
exactly
we
right.
Fast forward to 1 Corinthians 6, we have that whole section where we always talk about lawsuits. Well, if we break this down and we take this in context, it seems that probably, now I don't know that I can say this with certainty, Corey, and maybe you have an idea about this, But probably the lawsuits and everything that were going on in 1 Corinthians 6 are a result of what happened in 1 Corinthians 5 with the man who was with his father's wife. And now we have a family who's probably, they're all these lawsuits have broken out. And of course, Paul's telling them, why are you taking this stuff before people who are outside of the church and who are okay with what's going on to a degree? I think that's a whole interesting concept, but they're kind of living the same way, and you're letting them judge things that they're okay with. Why are you taking this outside? There's a right way to handle this kind of stuff. But what's really interesting is that Paul says the same thing that you were getting at, is that it comes a point when all this is going on, why not just be wronged and move on? I mean, there comes a point that it's like, all right, it's bad. It's what it is. Why don't we just accept that we've been wronged and move on about our life? Now, that's not an easy pill to swallow, but I think what you were talking about, the winning, who's winning, or I can't remember how you said it, but basically, I've got to win this argument, I've got to win this situation, whatever. I almost think that we get caught up in that I've got to win this situation in order for me to have self-satisfaction. Right. And if we're only interested in winning the argument and winning the lawsuit and winning the people, whatever, then that really, helps us, the rise of self, really that the rise of self causes more issue than not, because we're playing into this selfish type of belief system that is only focused on me and nobody else. And therefore, I'm always looking for the fight. I'm always wanting to have the victory in everything that goes on. And that causes a great problem in relationships. It causes a great problem for us as Christians, because a person who is truly trying to walk step by step with the Lord isn't focused on that. They're focused on everything else, on other people, not just themselves. And I think that's something that we've got to at least consider in this conversation.
Yeah, and some of it going back to the points you're making in 1 Corinthians, and he's going to here in this next verse maybe get a little bit more even applicable to that. Verse 40, if somebody wants to sue you and take your shirt, let them have your coat also. In part because it's not worth the negative publicity, and I'll give you even maybe more of a everyday practical application of that. How often do we want to, argue against our brother and argue against, whatever on Facebook in front of the entire world? Well, that's not the place to do that. I think probably a lot of times those are more about opinions and personal agendas than it is anything. But even if it was about truth and salvation issues, us arguing between ourselves in front of the world is not going to do anything to glorify God or bring others to Jesus. In fact, what it usually tends to make people do, in my experience, is they both bow up and it just becomes World War III, and that definitely does not help anything. So again, it's about I want to be justified. That's the same word in original language as righteousness. Mm-hmm. I want to be justified by winning the argument, putting them in their place, getting what's mine or whatever. And Jesus is saying sometimes, you can do a whole lot more for the cause of Christ when people see us showing love and mercy and grace to each other, And verse 41 is another great example. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2 miles. Well, this has a really specific application for them, because according to Josephus and a lot of other historians, Roman soldiers could make you carry their gear for about 1 mile. And from what I've read, that's about 100 pounds of gear. So what the Jews would do is they would mark exactly 1 mile both ways down the road from their home. And that way, as soon as they got to that inch of a mile, then down that, they dropped that gear in the mud or the dust or manure or whatever happened to be in the road. In fact, they were probably hoping that there would be manure in the road that they could drop it in.
Yeah.
But imagine, and again, if you watch The Chosen, you see this illustrated on The Chosen. Imagine you get to the 1 mile marker and the soldier goes to grab it and you say, no, I'm good. I'm going to go another mile with you. Well, in a world of doing the bare minimum that you have to and doing it with the wrong kind of attitude, the righteous person, according to God's standards, is the one that says, I can do better than that. And just imagine that conversation with that Roman soldier saying, why are you doing this? And you can tell him about the Lord. You know, that's the kind of attitude that, and he's going to explain that more in the next verse, but I'll hush up and let you give some real insight to this. But that's the kind of attitude that he's trying to help people to see, I think, that is God's definition of what true righteousness is.
Well, again, that's having the right mindset about who this is for. You know, even going back to, I was thinking about, you know, when Jesus, in the last hours of Jesus's life, the Jews were still focused on who won and who lost. But in the spiritual mind of Christ, he understood what true victory was. And it wasn't about what's in the moment, that satisfaction that you can gain from, you know, really is something that you create in your mind. Oh, I've got this over this guy. But going the extra mile, if you will, like you said, to help somebody, even if their motivation is wrong, even if it's hard, then that's actually the Spirit of Christ at work. So, you know, I think about 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 12, keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles, so that in the things in which they slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, observe them and glorify God in the day of visitation. So how you act can have a huge impact on another person who is not acting in the right way. They may be trying to hurt you. They may be trying to do something terrible, but by your godly character, there's a lot of great opportunity that might be able to be seen or felt with the other person. So I don't know, there's a lot of application that we could make for our own lives today, for sure. But I do think that this is a great teaching on the actions of the individual as we're trying to, you know, take that step to be like Jesus within our life. So
that's right. You know, and it's the whole idea that more people, and this has been my experience, and I think it's been yours as well. Obviously, we have to teach people at some point. I'm not saying that.
Sure.
But I'd say there's more people that are brought to Jesus by conversation, if you think of it in a biblical way, that's used of your conduct or whatever. There's more people brought to Jesus by conversation than by information. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what's going to draw people originally. And again, when you go the extra mile, like whether it's the Roman soldier in their day or it's in our day, that neighbor that's always snippy and hard to get along with, or the person that's done you wrong or whatever, and you don't not only help them, but you go the extra mile to help them, then some people are going to say, well, I got him, you know, but some people are going to say, now, after I've treated you that way, why would you treat me that way? Mm. And you can say, well, if you knew the way the Lord treated me, you know, I don't have any choice. And that's how a couple I've been doing marriage counseling with, and we've been going through Trey and Leah Morgan's book on 10 ways to a better marriage. And the chapter we were studying yesterday was, treating your partner better than they deserve. And we were talking about the reason that we do that is because God has treated us better than we deserve, and we're not supposed to keep a scoreboard like I did something for you. Now it's time, because God doesn't keep a scoreboard like that. Aren't you glad? So what an impact you can have. You may not be able to stand in a pulpit and preach or debate or whatever, but you can be kind to people, and sometimes that preaches a better lesson than any sermon that we can.
Yeah. Yesterday I was looking at, in our sermon yesterday morning, we were looking at the call of all 12 and the 12 original apostles, and we kind of looked at not every one of them, but we looked at most of them individually from what we understand. But one of the things that really strikes me, and you talk about God not keeping a scorecard, Peter was the apostle who, during the night when Jesus was taken, he was the one who followed John, entered the courtyard. The rest of the apostles are nowhere to be found. They're all gone. And so Peter is in the courtyard where Jesus is, and of course he denies him 3 times. But I never thought about this until putting this together. Peter was the only one who, or he really was the one who he not only denied Christ, but he went the extra mile to deny Christ and to deny any association with Jesus. And that's saying something. It's one thing to disperse. It's one thing to be in the area but not want to be known. It's another thing to be loud and proud about, I don't have any idea who this is. I have nothing to do with him. All right.
Cussing and fussing.
And we know what he did after. It says that he wept bitterly whenever they locked eyes and all that. But here's the cool thing, is that on the 3rd day when Jesus raises and they, conversations begin having, Jesus says, go get the apostle, go get everybody, and get Peter. So he singles Peter out, and he says, make sure he's there. You talk about not keeping a scorecard. I think that is one of the most amazing things. Again, it goes back to this idea, Jesus could have been, when he raised from the dead, like, all right, I got you. I got this one over on you. So I'm going to prove this, and I'm going to shove it down your throat that I have done what I said I was going to do. He could have used that moment to be arrogant, really make a point, but he didn't. Mm-hmm. That wasn't what he was all about. And so I think, we've talked a lot about hard stuff. Jesus has talked about a lot of hard stuff so far within this sermon. But to treat people in this type of way, when they're treating you very poorly, that's a true test of character. Yes. It's a true test of whether we are really striving to live like Christ or not. So this is hard stuff here, and it's a true test, and one that we pass and one that we fail. But we've got to keep trying to do this for sure. Yep.
And again, none of this means you have to let someone hurt you or your family.
Sure.
Again, Exodus 22 talks about that. It doesn't mean that you can't use government for justice. Again, Romans 12 through Romans 13 teaches that. Mm-hmm. But this is about your attitude about that person and their soul. And so he wraps up this section in verse 42. Give to the one who begs from you. Do not refuse to the one who would borrow from you. So give and loan, Since this is in the conversation about revenge, it's kind of like they come to you and you take this haughty attitude of, oh, now you want my help. Well, forget you. I know how you acted when I needed help, and now you're getting what you deserve.
Yeah.
Jesus says no. When he asks, you help them. You loan to them. See, all of these have to do with responses and what you do with conflict. And since conflict is part of our world, here you go with it. It's go through the whole list again. How should we respond to conflict? Well, turn the other cheek, let them have our coat, go the second mile, give and loan. That's not the way the world says to handle people that are aggressive or controversial or confrontational or mean and nasty or whatever. That's not the way the world says to do it. It's not the way the rabbis and the scribes and the Pharisees taught how to do it. But Jesus says, unless your righteousness exceeds their righteousness, you're not going to be a part of the kingdom, because this is the upside down kingdom that Jesus is bringing in, where we are more concerned about others than we are ourselves.
Right. Your giving of whatever should never depend on status, whether it's within our culture or their status with you. If a person is in need, we have an opportunity to do something good for them, to help them in whatever way. Galatians 6:10, we ought to do that. And there's also the conversation of stewardship, the stewardship of our, of the things that we have, of the relationships that we have. I mean, treating things the right way, thinking about them the right way. 2 Thessalonians 3:10. This is all important. So if we have the opportunity to help somebody, our help should not be contingent on their behavior. Our help should not be contingent on their status. Our help should not be contingent on, and I'm not saying that there might not be a line that there's a line where you can't help. Your help, for somebody who has exhausted, I think we know who we would probably be talking about. They've exhausted everything with you. They've exhausted everything with everyone else. They have come to a point where they've hit rock bottom. They have ruined every relationship that they possibly have. Sometimes you're not helping in a financial way or whatever. Sometimes you're saying no is actually helping. So please understand that there is a time for that as well. There's a difference between helping and enabling, but this is really about helping whenever somebody's in need. So there's a line there, but we've got to be focused on the positive side of giving, the positive side of helping. And somebody has done some of these things that we've been discussing, and you're helping them whenever they don't deserve it. I don't know that there's a truer act of Jesus in our life than something like that.
No, and think about how much Jesus has done for me that I didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
And that's really what is the kicker on all this. Plus, even if it doesn't work out the way that we want it to ultimately, we're supposed to be people that are focused on the spiritual and eternal anyway. So they end up with my shirt and my coat. Well, big deal. I'm going to get a robe and a crown one day, So ultimately, if I'm taken advantage of for 100 years, if I live to be 100, if I'm taken advantage of for 100 years, what's that compared to eternity? And that's the perspective, not only for myself, but also for them. Maybe I can help them to reach that eternity. So,
yeah. And this isn't to, you ever seen those videos on social media where they're helping somebody and they just want you to see it?
Yeah.
Oh, look what I've done. I've helped this guy and I got this guy, a job or whatever.
And going back to the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, that in and of itself, that's not wrong, because we don't know what their motives are. We've got to let our light shine before men. Everything can't be done in anonymity, because if we do that, then we're not shining our light on the Lord.
Right. This isn't about patting myself on the back and saying, "Hey, check out what I've done." That's different too.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes we don't know. We ought to think the best of each other, and we don't know. Maybe we automatically assume the worst when we shouldn't. But, nonetheless, it's about, what your mindset or attitude is going to go a long way in determining, what you do with and for people. Are you the kind of person like the scribes and Pharisees that's using the law as a reason to punish people, or are you using it as a way to bring justice and mercy and love to people? And there's a big difference in those two things. And if it's the latter, then hopefully that sets up our being able to help people see about the love and mercy, grace, justice of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, and that takes us down to, verse 43. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. Well, if we continue to be, remain in context and we're being consistent about what Jesus has said, who has been saying that? The scribes and the Pharisees. That's been what they have been teaching. That's what they have been telling everybody. But Jesus is saying something different. Love your neighbor, but also love your enemies. Pray for your persecutors, so you can be like your Father. I mean, that's the whole idea. So he goes on, he says, but I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven, for he causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Therefore, you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. So, there's a lot of teaching about love, but the type of love that Jesus is talking about is different than what the Pharisees are expressing. Anybody can go and say, I love you to somebody that you love, but to love somebody that you got a major problem with, that's different. So again, we got to get away from the selfish type of mindset that the scribes and the Pharisees were promoting throughout their ministry as a whole.
Yeah, and where they had twisted in the previous, this is the sixth contrast here, they're adding to, because the first part of this comes from Leviticus 19 and verse 18, to love your neighbor, but the hate your enemy part, they had added to that. Nowhere in the old law does it say to hate your enemies. They had added that. And in fact, they would say love your neighbor and hate your enemies, but remember Jesus telling the scribe the tale of the Good Samaritan, and it was taught to answer the question, but who is my neighbor? In Hebrew, neighbor and friend is the same word. And so the end of the Good Samaritan tells us that who my neighbor is anybody who needs mercy shown to them. Neighbor had nothing to do with the proximity of your home to them. The guy 2 houses down, I don't have to love as much as the guy in the house right next. That's not it. If you come into contact with them, then they're your neighbor. If they need mercy, they're your neighbor. And so Jesus is saying your righteousness needs to be like God. So how be like God? For 3 things he tells us to do. First of all, love your enemies. And the word here, there's different words for love in Greek. Agape love is when you want the best for that person. So you'll do all you can to bring out the best for them. Okay. That's the word used here. Phileo love is liking them like a buddy. And Jesus didn't use phileo here because God's not calling us to do the unrealistic. I can love my enemy, but I don't necessarily have to like them, be buddies and go out to eat fish with them on Friday night. You know what I'm saying? So what he sent us is to agape love them, seek the best for them. And then number 2, to pray for them. And some translations have some additional information. Bless those who curse you and do good to who hate you or whatever. That's not in the original context, but pray for them. Pray for the people that are trying to hurt me. And then the third thing is, and that's in the following verses, is to show kindness to everybody, to all men. That's who God shows kindness to. He makes it rain on the just and the unjust. And that's what we ought to do. Blessing is not necessarily a sign of a right relationship. That's not, again, the book of Job teaches us that. Blessing or cursing does not necessarily mean you stand in the right with God. But, if you are going to be like God, you've got to love them. And I love the verse 46, if you only love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? Well, that had to hurt. Mm-hmm. We hate the tax collectors. And if you only greet your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Don't even the Gentiles do the same? Well, that takes it another notch. That would have been insulting. And see, they thought that it was okay because that's what the Pharisees were teaching them. But Jesus says even the tax collectors and the Gentiles have better sense. I mean, they know to treat well those who treat them well. You think the righteousness of the tax collectors and Gentiles is what you ought to aspire to? No. God's level of righteousness is that we love everyone and that we show that agape love to everyone, not just those who we think deserve it or earn it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are two groups that are very much hated. Yes. Matthew was a tax collector, so he was, in a sense, a traitor to the faith, traitor to his people. So they have their own huge, bubble over here. They're despised, even to the point they're not even allowed in the synagogue if they used to be a Jew, which a lot of them were. So you have that, and then you have the Gentiles, everybody else who, we are God's chosen people. You're not, so you're over here, and we don't want anything to do with you. So, like you said, that's a slap in the face to them. But the type of love, like you were getting at, that he's talking about, this is an intentional, purposeful type of love that is really focused on the other person. It's really focused on what is best for them and how, they can be helped and how they can be blessed. That just doesn't happen. You have to choose to do that. And just like when Jesus went on the cross for everybody, because all men have fallen, sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, he chose to do that. And we find that he really wished there could be another way, but he chose to do it. So this type of love is an intentional type of love that we choose to do, and that's what's so powerful about the concept of love that Jesus continues to talk about. Because he is doing things that are in the best interest of everybody else, not in his own best interest. So just like 1 Corinthians 6, why not just let it go? You may have to deal with some emotions for a little bit, but just let it go. What's the point? Just be wronged and get through it. This may help the entire situation out. So doing what's best for everybody else, what is in their best interest, 1 John 3, 16 through 18, Jesus has already said that we're to love our enemies, so we're to put forth the best efforts of our heart, the best efforts of our life, of our mind toward them, and for their hearts, for their betterment, as Peter said in 1 Peter 2:12. And so that's what followers of Jesus do. They're looking at what is best for the other person, and if my actions can show that, my heart can show that, that's the ultimate way that we can show love and kindness to everyone else, not necessarily by what we say, but certainly by what we are able to do.
Let it go. Let it go. Hey, one more thing. That verse 48 down there is maybe one of the most discouraging verses in the Bible. He says, you therefore must be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Well, how that verse is calling me to be perfect like God. How unrealistic is that? But Jesus is not asking us to do the impossible. This is one of those really misunderstood verses in the Bible. You have to look in context what he's talking about. He's talking about love. So in
love.
context, what is he talking about? He's talking about perfect love. It's not a call to be sinless. That's impossible. Romans 3 tells us that. This word that's translated perfect means mature. So if our translators had chosen to go with mature, we'd have a whole lot less problems with this verse. But what he's saying is to be mature in our love, like the Father is. How is he perfect in love or mature in love? He sends blessings to the just and the unjust. And if we're going to be like him in love, that means we love the just and the unjust. So,
perfect in love. That's it. Paul said, if you, what did he say? 1 Corinthians 13, 1 through 3. You can speak with the voice of angels, but don't have love. You have nothing. Just a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If you have faith as to move mountains, so love is more important than anything I can say, anything I can do, or anything that I have. Actually, I think the last two are swapped there. But love really is the most important thing. It's the driver behind all this. It's the driver behind our redemption and salvation. It's the driver behind how we treat one another. It's the driver behind the effectiveness of the church. Love really is the foundational, pillar of our faith. None of what we have exists without love, and none of what we have the opportunity to do for ourselves, our families, our congregation, the people around us, the world, none of that can reach its potential without love.
Yep. We sing, Holy, 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 Lord God Almighty. And in one of those verses, we sing that he's perfect in power, in love, and purity. And he is. You have heard it said it's okay to pick and choose who you want to love. But if we're going to follow God's level of righteousness, God's standard of righteousness, then it's perfect or complete, mature in love, and that's loving everybody.
Yeah. Now, don't get this confused. We're not saying you got to like everything that everybody does.
That's right.
We're not saying that you got to like everybody. We're not saying that you got to hang out with everybody or, like you said, cook fish with everybody. That is not what we're saying. We're not saying that there's not a point where, we have to cross over to the idea of enabling somebody's behavior. That's not what we're saying at all. That's not what Jesus is saying.
No.
But love does what is best for the ones who are loved, and God does have love for everybody, and he wants what's best for everybody. And sometimes that may mean that we who were striving to be like Jesus in this life may need to take one in the cheek so that somebody else may be able to abound and grow and experience the love of Christ in their life.
Yep. All you need is love. I thought you'd throw in the wah, 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 wah.
Wah, 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 wah.
All you need is love. All you need is love, love. And then if Yoda was singing it, he would say, love is all you need.
It's all you need. Speaking of Yoda, we did go see The Mandalorian
we did too.
couple days ago.
Yeah.
That one took an unexpected turn. I really didn't know what to expect with it, but I liked it.
Yeah. It wasn't the best Star Wars movie, but
no, but it was.
It felt like it was made to chop up into about 6 episodes of The Mandalorian if they were going to release a season. But
I think that they are. Yeah, they're.
But a bad Star Wars movie is better than having no Star Wars movie.
Well, yeah, we can't talk about it too much so we don't ruin it for everyone else who's going to go see it. But I liked it. It was a lot of fun, a lot of cool stuff. I just like the storytelling of, what's going on, everywhere. And throughout different times. And so I enjoyed it. So, and I felt like it was pretty clean.
Yeah.
It really was. So good movie to go see.
Yes.
If you're thinking about it.
When 900 years old you reach, look as good you will not.
Oh, my goodness. Well, we're going to end with that, folks.
More still you will excel.
Oh, well, Corey, it's been another great discussion. A lot of things to think about with chapter 5, which now we have ended chapter 5, and we will get into chapter 6 as we continue on looking at the Sermon on the Mount, where we will be looking at alms as we move forward in our study. And so we hope that you are planning on joining us today, or planning on joining us next week, as you have today and have been. And we do hope that you will share this with others if you've been enjoying this study. And our hope is that it just helps you. That's it. We don't consider ourselves special or anything like that. We just hope that this study and discussion helps you grow in your own spiritual walk and your knowledge, gives you some things to think about, perspectives to think about for your own life, your own walk, as you're striving to be more like Christ in your life. And our hope is that this accomplishes that effort so we can be untied from culture, traditional actions, things of that nature, such as we found here with the scribes and Pharisees that Jesus has been talking about. Untie from that and tie on to the actions, the teachings, the word, and the love of Christ within our life. So we're grateful that you have joined us today. We hope that you'll join us again next week for our next episode, and we hope that the Lord will continue to bless you in your daily walk with Him. And until next time, stay untied.
All we need is love.